You know, it's one thing to say that God is my provision, but it's another thing to experience it every day. And that is something that Christian business people can really testify to.
Absolutely. And thanks to the Well, an exciting initiative is taking place on the 4th and 5th of November, respectively, in Auckland and Wellington. It's called Faith and Risk Taking. And this morning, we have the privilege of being joined via Zoom by Scott Pilkington, founder and managing director of Resonance Consulting, to talk more about this exciting event. So good morning, Scott. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. Thanks.
So it's really cool to know that this event fits into a wider vision that you have for how business people fit into the kingdom and can refresh, be refreshed and refresh also the ministries around the place. So why don't you tell us about that first and foremost? What inspired the Well initiative?
Well, I've been thinking about this topic since I was about 24 years old, which I'll explain in a moment. But I did some research earlier this year, and I rang 5 business people that I knew, a bunch of entrepreneurs, executives, CEOs, and said, how well do you think the church speaks to business people? And basically they universally laughed and went, what are you talking about? It doesn't really talk to them at all, which obviously made me sad, makes them sad. And so generally, I think often business people feel quite isolated. And at the age of 24, I was kind of wrestling with, do I become a pastor? Do I become a businessman? And I came across 2 amazing books. One by Robert Letourneau, an American guy, invented the bulldozer, the earth-moving scraper. Another guy by a guy called Robert Laidlaw, we probably all know, who started Farmers Department Store. And they both gave away 90% of their wealth. They're extremely generous. They encouraged business people in their faith and their own team in their faith. And I thought, oh my goodness, I want to be just like these guys. And that's what I want every business person to know, that God loves them. He's got a plan and a calling and a purpose for their life.
This is really interesting. Can I just go off course a little bit and ask you, what do you think are the 2 main challenges for business people? Like when they sit in church and they hear the sermons and they go, well, this is great, but how do I even work that out in my own working life? What do you think one of the main things that comes to mind in that situation?
Well, one of the things that just staggers me, which is the reason we want to do the Well, is there has traditionally been a real dearth of information about this sort of stuff. It's getting a little bit better now, but Robert Letourneau, he's born about year 1900, before, and they were making roads with mules and things until he invented the bulldozer. And Robert Laidlaw, one of the heroes of business and faith in New Zealand, that guy would be way over 100 years old as well. Where are our modern day business heroes? So that's what we want to do. We want to platform incredible men, incredible ladies who manage to intersect their faith and the workplace and just inspire people. It's going to be so awesome.
Yeah, well, and the theme, of course, faith and risk-taking. So what can people expect from heading along to this event then, Scott?
Well, I think so we've got this guy called Graham Shaw. I've got to know him as a client. He's an amazing guy. He was a director of Xero, which is obviously a famous New Zealand tech story pre-IPO. He's a director of Gentrack. He was director and then ultimately chairman of PushPay. And he's currently the chairman of Christian Savings, which is kind of like the bank for churches and charities here in New Zealand. And the reason that we're going to be talking about faith and risk-taking is that I believe that the Lord is a creative God. He's called us to be courageous. I love the parable of the talents, where he said, look, I gave you these things in your hand. What did you do with them? And I want all of us at the end of our life to be able to say, that the Lord to say, well done, good and faithful servant. And business people have been given gifts of leadership, gifts of provision, all sorts of amazing gifts. So let's encourage our business people to be amazing and to play their role in the ecosystem and support the church and the Lord's charities here in New Zealand.
That is such a challenging parable, I think, for every single person who reads it, whether they're in business or not, right? What have you done with what God has given you in this lifetime?
Yes.
And about sowing seeds that will have eternal, benefits and fruit as a result. Well, I understand that you, this event and actually the Well has gained tremendous support. So it's now endorsed by the Auckland Church Network alongside previous sponsors like the Wilberforce Foundation. Of course, you mentioned Christian Savings and Graham Shaw, who is the head of that, who's going to be speaking at this event. So how is this growing and expanding so far? How did that all come together?
So I started this event back in 2021. We originally had 42 business people come in the evening. Then I found breakfasts were going to be good for this. We had 58. people at the second one. I think you came to that, Kat, at Parnell Rose Gardens, and it was sort of standing room only down the back. This time we're going way bigger. We've got 200 people in Auckland, 200 people in Tauranga, actually. Unfortunately, not Wellington this time, but 200 in Auckland, 200 in Tauranga we're hoping for. The Auckland event's at Akarana Marina in Okahu Bay on Monday, November the 4th, over breakfast. And then the next day, November the 5th, in Tauranga at Trinity Wharf Hotel. 200, we're hoping, over breakfast and coffee. But may the Lord's will be done, and he knows how many people and who he wants to turn up.
Well, look, as you said, there's 200 spots available for Auckland and Tauranga there. So if people do want to head along to this, how do they register, or how do they find out more about it?
So we've got a email address called the Well Breakfast at gmail.com. So they're welcome to email me on that. Alternatively, they can just jump on Google or go to Humanitix. If you go to that ticketing site and you just search the Well Faith and Risk Taking Breakfast, or just search the Well Faith and Risk Taking on Google, I'm sure it'll come up. We would love to have huge support, and please share the news with the business people in your life.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. It has been very insightful having a chat to you, and I'm sure people will drink from the well. So if you'd like to find out more about this amazing event, you can go to, of course, humanitix.com and look up the Well Faith and Risk Taking Breakfast, or email thewellbreakfast@gmail.com. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss the next video.
We'll see you in the next one.